I'm going to start by bringing up our amazing moderator, one of the founding voices behind ReelAbilities, Mr. Lawrence Carter Long. Lawrence, thank you so much for being here.
Lawrence.
We're just giving him some exercise tonight.
Always make a grand entrance.
Don't tell me which of the films was your favorite. But we do want to hear. But don't tell us now, because we have here folks from all the films. I want to start by bringing up Sam Dijkstra from, did I get that right? From Sea Legs. Sam, thank you so much. Clare-Louise English from We Care. Claire, thank you so much for being here. Nathan Morris from My Eyes Are Up Here, the director. Daisy Friedman, As You Are. Daisy, thank you so much. Donald Lee from Donald. Dylan Tucillo from Donald, the director. And of course, Troy Kotsur, To My Father.
Justin?
How to put this.
We got all the right people in all the right places. Thank you all so much. We'll let...
It's a little.
And Lawrence, I hand things over to you.
Thank you, sir. Hello, ReelAbilities. How are you? It's good to be with you again. I am blown away, as always, by the, where else, by the just everything that we've just seen. You know, where else, how else, in the span of a couple of short hours, can you get the refreshing and different perspectives, presentation, and personality that you saw in all these films, right? And it's my honor and a pleasure to moderate this discussion. Now, we got a lot of fantastic people here, and I want to make sure that we get to all of them, okay? And so I'm going to try to do my best, and hopefully we'll have a little time at the end to get some questions from you all. I think because just the last film we saw was For My Father. Troy, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. Now, we met several years ago at this festival when you had a film called No Ordinary Hero, the story of Super Deafy. And it was narrative, right? And I wanted to talk a little bit. The reasons you made the film, which is beautifully rendered, are obvious and beautiful. I wanted to talk a little bit about the transition. You produced this film, and I wanted to talk about how the difference between making a narrative and making a documentary and what that means to you as a creator.
Thank you so much for having me, first and foremost, to ReelAbilities, and thank you for providing access with captioning and sign language interpreters. I would like to give you a big hand for providing that access. And secondly, that's an interesting question regarding Super Deafy, the film that I directed. And so you have something that's scripted, right? And you have to prepare and plan, similar to a stage production. But when you're shooting a documentary, you don't have a script. You don't have a plan. You know, they gave me about 100 questions that I had to answer on camera, and I tried my best to answer all of their questions. And they summarized that into the story of our short film. And so these gentlemen from Dad Saves America, it's a YouTube channel, they saw my Oscar speech, and they saw when I said my dad was my hero, and they wanted to interview me for their YouTube channel. So that was the backstory that led us to creating this short documentary. And I feel like this doc is important, an important message for parents to be involved with their kids. It doesn't matter if they're deaf or whether they're blind or have CP or any type of disability. The important thing is to be involved in your children's lives and give them what they need to succeed. And that was just one example, is our film. And back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we didn't have much access. We didn't have access to interpreters or captioning, but my father found time in his busy schedule to reach me as his deaf child, and that led me to where I am today.
And in terms of presenting this and now sharing it with the world, what were your intentions? What were your goals? And how have you been surprised?
You know, I've had several producers coming up to me asking if I would be interested to expand this into a series or a feature film based on my life. And I'm like, it might be a little too much information about my personal life. We might want to hold off on that. But I think it's a good sign. And I think we'll figure something out eventually. I think I need to find somebody who can play me, first and foremost.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to move now to Nathan. Nathan, my eyes are up here. I got to tell you, in the thousands, yes. In the thousands of films that I've seen made by disabled filmmakers or starring disabled characters, I don't think I've ever seen an F-bomb in the first line of a film before. I want to thank you for that. And I also wanted to really stress, I love how one of the things of many that this film does well is it starts with that bang, and you keep turning up the volume. You keep increasing that pressure. And I wanted to talk a little, just when I thought, oh, he's gone as far as nope. Right? There's something else. And I wanted to talk, just tell us a little bit about how this film came to be and why you wanted to make it.
Well, yeah, thank you. It was weird hearing your voice this loud. Ooh. Thank you so much for having the film here. Really, it's a real honour to be here. It's incredible. The film came about, I had a chance encounter with one of the writers, and we just met and had some noodles and hung out. And I was like, can you show me what you're working on? I was desperate to work on something good. And he showed me the script, and it just blew me away. I just loved it. I saw it in my head straight away. It's written by two writers. One of them, Aminda Verdi, who's an English activist. She's disabled. It's very much based on her life experience. So once I read the script, I talked to her, and then I begged and begged and begged to let me make the film. And I sort of had to, it really spoke to me because I'm adopted. I think it speaks to, and a lot of the films here speak to otherness and how people are othered. And it's something I can relate to a little bit in my own way. And I think it's something a lot of us can relate to in our own ways. And I think empathy is the most important emotion we have. And filmmaking is about creating empathy with people. And so for me, this film was a chance for me to show something I could relate to, even though the vessel was different, and get it out there. And also to say fuck a lot.
Another thing that impressed me was that in a lot of films, even to this day, that have disabled characters, they can often be props in other people's stories. And that was not the case with Jillian's character. I just wonder if you want to talk about the agency that she shows.
Yeah, well, I learned so much because I called myself the white able-bodied elephant in the room when I was making it, and I am still scared of saying or doing the wrong thing because I learned so much about how people are seen and how wrong it is. And working with Aminda, everything you saw on screen is based in real life. It all happened. Which is shocking. Like going through the script and adjusting it, I was like, is this realistic? And then Aminda and Jillian would be like, hell's yes. And that was just and that was really important for me to show that, So yeah, and I really wanted to avoid, and I was thinking about it, watching all the films did this, avoiding those tropes of how people with disabilities are shown, which is, so you know them better than me. But yeah, so we just really wanted to be really true. And we had one of the writers, the disabled writer, Aminda, she was alongside me the whole time working as a creative director's attachment. And I would always be looking at her saying, is the gaze right? Have I got the tone right? Am I doing this wrong? And that was just vital to the process.
So you had your reality checks all the way through.
Oh, yeah, and then some. Yeah, it was super important. And that was really good because the people would ask for changes, and they'd be like, for a minute, the bus scene was getting thrown out, so it was too much. And I was like, no, it's got to stay. And just fought for it. And then it was real. So
Yeah, I think the beauty of that scene in particular is no matter how much agency you have or how much of a badass you are, you'll still get shit, right? And it's how you address that, what you do when you encounter it, which would...
yeah, you shouldn't have to do that, but she had to. But I call that her fight scene. And I still get a shiver down my spine when she's like, that's what's wrong with me, what the is wrong with you? And it's just like, you got
Yeah, a little bit of verbal jujitsu there.
For sure.
Flipping it back. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
I want to go, let's see, where am I going to go next? I am going to go to As You Are. Hi there, Daisy.
Hi.
Hi. One of the things I love about this film is that while the title, in the context of the film, would seem to be directed toward the disabled character, it could be to each of them, right? It could be to either of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. And the fact that you shot it in black and white gave it this almost fly on the wall, this documentary style intimacy that I think deepens and broadens that story. I wondered if you'd tell us a little bit about those decisions and how that story came to be. Thanks.
Absolutely, yeah. So the black and white part first kind of just came about because I wanted it to sort of feel timeless. It wasn't something that was going to be in the film originally, but I sort of started thinking about it and how sort of this story can and has existed sort of all throughout time and space, and this sort of now the place we're in advocacy and in representation is sort of the first time it's sort of able to be seen, but also I didn't want to put it in a time, and that's also why the aspect ratio is so small, because nothing else in the frame sort of particularly matters other than the two characters and what they have to say to each other and what they're doing. And yeah, but the film came about, I'm a multi-organ transplant recipient. I had a triple organ transplant, and I sort of spent a lot of my young life, childhood, pushing away from the disabled world in a way that I think, looking back, really didn't serve me very well. And I wrote this film during COVID when I was in high school. I'm 21 now. And I wrote it at about 3 o'clock in the morning in 2020 because I think I sort of had all of these feelings and thoughts about myself and my body that I never really was able to process throughout life, because that's how that happens sometimes. And it sort of just all came out, and I didn't really know how to talk about my experience quite yet. So I decided to make the character a wheelchair user because that was more, I guess, visually understandable for me, for an audience, for what we kind of know as like the disabled world in like a very stereotypical sense. And I actually submitted this film to my college portfolio. I went to UCLA for a year where I actually saw Troy's speech a few years ago. It was wonderful. Really phenomenal.
Oh, wow, small
really
world.
Phenomenal. And yeah, I never thought it was ever going to really go anywhere, but I found this small production company based out of Queens. My producer's here. Thank you, Justine. I love you. And I originally reached out to her for an internship because I was a freshman in college and I really wanted an internship. I knew I was moving to the city. And she said she didn't really have any projects slated for this summer. So I said, okay, if you don't have any projects, can I maybe pitch you a project? And I felt crazy for doing it. But she said, yeah, sure. She read the script, and she basically said, let's get a pitch deck and some storyboards together, and if you can do that in a month, we'll talk. And I didn't know what those words meant. So I asked my professors, and I asked some of my friends, and they helped me put together this awesome pitch. And then she said, great, if you can get the fundraising together, let's make a movie. And kind of all happened very quickly.
So yeah, what was the time span then?
The time span, that's a great question. I did the original pitch in March of 2022. One or two, I don't remember.
It's all a blur.
Yeah,
It's okay.
everything, time is irrelevant. And then we shot in September of 2022.
Okay. And I think I'll ask you the same question I asked earlier. What were your expectations with this film, and how have you been surprised?
That's a good question. I had no expectations. I made it for myself. I made it for my actors. One of them's here today, Bree, because Millie is here today. And I made it to see some representation and have sort of my thoughts and feelings that I sort of came to realize were a lot of other people's thoughts and feelings in the disabled community about what it means to be loved and desired and have people accept you for who you are. And I sort of just made it for that. And I really didn't know anything going into this. This is my first film as well. And I have been so deeply amazed. We've gone to about 25 film festivals, but not even just that, just like the community I've met of like, including ReelAbilities, like the disabled creatives, I like have never felt more like loved and accepted by and like inspired by all these amazing creative people. Yeah, and it's to sound cheesy, but like it's really changed my life. This is actually our last festival, so it's really, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And I really appreciate also how, I know my dealings in the industry, you can be this or that, right? And often you can be disabled or queer, but you can't be both. And industry executives are kind of scratching their heads and trying to figure out how they're going to market this film or what they're going to do. And so it's great to see, I think, that depth and that complexity, the realness that you showed. And so I really appreciate that. And thank you. Sam.
Hi.
Hi. Let's talk about, man, that's a deep voice. Let's talk about Sea Legs. One of the things that's great about short narratives is, how long's your film?
7 minutes.
7 minutes, right? So in 7 minutes, you can't always give the backstory, the history, right? How they became disabled, why they became disabled, how they feel about it, any of that stuff, right? You kind of parachute the audience right into the middle of the story that you're wanting to tell. Mm. And I really appreciated that the story you told trusts the audience, right? You didn't give them any of those details, and you let the audience work that out for themselves, I think. I wondered if you'd tell us a little bit about the decisions that you made there and how this film came to be.
Yeah, definitely. So I wrote a longer screenplay, and I've been wanting to make a short film about this subject. I graduated as a screenwriter and worked with not a lot, but worked on a couple of other shorts. But I really wanted to make a film about this, and I thought the setting and the story would be perfect as a first step. And I didn't want to explain too much about what they were to each other, and also about. I wanted like certain things you could discover during the film. And I think the most important thing for me was that you do kind of feel that there is warmth and a real connection, but that they're still kind of in the beginning and also figuring out how to deal with certain situations. And I think this is the first time that they're with each other in this situation, like he meets her friends for the first time, and I think what happens then is it's kind of, you see this very little scene of how they cope with it, and I think in the end they make maybe a little step but I also didn't want it to be like this big, huge gesture. You know, it needed to be small and it needed to be, nuanced.
Yeah, it was that simplicity, that
Maybe,
slice
yeah,
of life
simple.
really
Yeah.
deeply resonated for me, right? Because you're wondering, is it because he's shy? Is it because it's a new relationship? He hasn't met these people before? You know, what exactly? And I think those are universal.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if, I mean, he's shy in this scene, but I think that's also because it's like a first for him in that situation. And he doesn't really know it. I think he also feels new things there, and he doesn't really know how to deal with it. And I mean, I thought a lot about how the group should react to him, but I also didn't want it to be like too big. But it certainly deals with, and it's loosely based on things that I felt when I was starting to date and meeting, like the group of friends.
And you yourself have a disability. You're an amputee, or
No, I have like orthesis.
you have
But
orthesis.
I don't know if that's.
So you've had similar.
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah, definitely, and yeah, it was important for me to try to get a feeling of that early time, and just see that little step he takes, and yeah.
I love how the friend sort of acknowledges, is that your leg?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
cool. You know, and then
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going to swim now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's acknowledged, but it's not the point or the plot.
No. I also wanted like for the friends to act differently towards him, and so it is acknowledged, but it's still, it's not like a huge part of the plot.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. We Care. Let's talk about We Care. Hi there.
Hi. Oh, that is weird, yeah. It's weird.
So much I want to talk about this film. I love the journey that the character goes on and that you take us on in making the film, and also that, you know, it's almost like the internal dialogue that someone has is being spoken out loud, right? And it's being shared with the viewer. And also the use of, well, we'll talk about that first. Why don't you talk about that and how this film came to be?
There's quite a lot of questions in that one.
In that one, yeah. I do that a lot. I'm sorry.
So it came to be because I'll try and do this quick. During COVID, in Britain, there's a playwright called Alan Bates, and he wrote Talking Heads, and they redid them over COVID. And I was watching them on the TV, and oh, hello everyone, by the way, hi. And I just thought, God, these are great, but they really still don't represent all of society. I mean, it was, you know, it's all very white, middle class, able-bodied people in those monologues. They're a series of monologues for anyone that doesn't know. So I was like, I spoke to my producer over there, and I was like, let's do our version of that. So we put a call out, actually, and we got lots of deaf and disabled writers to either pitch us kind of story ideas or first draft or finished drafts. And we kind of collated our favourites, and we took them through a script development period. And we got to a stage where, in the end, from 12, I think, that we took through the development period, we chose 7. So actually, there's 6 more shorts kind of like that in I don't know whether we'll ever manage to make them all. I would really love to. But so that was where it came from. So our version of Talking Heads, and we called the collection Talking Bodies, and that's where it came from. And the journey, I think, I've broke it into 3 acts, really, but it was lovely. Yeah, we haven't watched it for a really long time, so it was lovely to see it with such a big audience. And as you were all laughing, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Particularly because there was a really big laugh sort of before we went into what I call the second act. And I was like, oh, I felt so bad for what was coming from the audience. Sorry. But yeah, when we read it, we thought it was a really important and beautiful story, and you know, it's been our honour really to to make it happen.
Yeah, and well, I ran a film series of my own several years ago, and it screened a film called Dance Me to My Song. It had similar themes about abuse by caregivers or carers,
Yeah.
right? And I was shocked to learn in doing research for that the incidences of abuse are higher than that of domestic abuse, and akin to romantic relationships,
Yeah.
spouses. And so even though, yeah, it's a dark turn, it seemed to be a necessary one and an important one.
Yeah, and I think Steph, the actress in it, she wrote it, and she wrote it so beautifully with such care and tenderness, but always, I mean, the thing about Steph is she writes wonderful comedy, so I think one of the things we always try and do actually with the work that we make is we try to make people feel comfortable and safe through the use of comedy so that we can give you create a space where you feel then safe to cry, actually, because we've sort of taken the barriers down a little bit through the comedy, and I think Steph kind of has that in her writing as well.
Yeah, and she doesn't leave us there, right? You see
No.
that new beginning.
Yeah, it was important that we had some light at the end of the tunnel, but obviously the character has changed now. She's gone through something life-changing, and she'll never be the same again. And I tried to, can I be a bit geeky about camera angles?
Go for it.
Okay, so I tried to sort of reflect that in what we did with the camera. So the first act, if you like, before the abuse, she is really talking directly to us, and she's happy to move her body to speak directly to the camera, to speak to us, the audience. And then in the second act, when the abuse starts, it's like the camera is always trying to get into her eye line, and she's always trying to move away. And then we wanted for the last act where she's talking into the mirror, it was like she's talking to us again, but something's different. There's a barrier between us now, and it was.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's you can tell there's a shift. There's a change. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. I really, really love the film, and I need to see more. So, Donald, Daniel, hello. Dylan, sorry, Dylan. It's
could be
D
Daniel.
words, too many D words. Yeah, love the film. Have some background and some history with Heidi and with Meredith, so it was great to see them again, at least on the screen. I wanted to talk about one, just visually, the visual style of the film, if you would, because you say one of the things you talk about how your life, your work, everything is sort of a creative process, right? Is inspiration, and I think that comes through beautifully in the film, right? How talk about the wheelchair is, at one point that final shot is almost like a throne, right? You're on the top of it. Talk about how this film came to be. I mean, it's obvious why you would want to make a film about this guy, but tell us a little bit more about your creative process and why you rendered it the way that you did.
Sure, yeah, and I'm glad it is obvious because you could see who wouldn't want to make a film about Donald. Yeah, and I feel honored to be here. Thanks for having me. These films are amazing. Yeah, it came to be, it was actually commissioned by Columbia University, commissioned me to make 4 short documentaries, each about people with disabilities. And I kind of saw that as a chance to really try to tell some stories, and they didn't really have any other parameters besides that. So I got to, Donald was just asking me, how did you even find me? And I was just like, Google, just a lot of Googling. And I saw some clips of Donald dancing. They were amazing. But there were just some short clips. And then on our first day of filming, he agreed to do the film. And we just, right after meeting him, we were filming him in that rehearsal studio, just going for it. And both Brian, my cinematographer, and I, our jaws just dropped and our eyes. And I edited the film as well, and I kind of shoot to edit, so I'll know how much footage I'll need for a certain section. So I probably just need 5 minutes of dancing footage, so maybe that's all I'll film. But because the dancing was so amazing, we were just keep the cameras rolling, keep them rolling. So we were just filming for, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I think the rest of the film was just inspired. The editing and the music and everything just came out of what we saw you do there, Donald, just that. And I think what's great about it is, dance, it's beyond words, so hopefully it impacts everyone kind of on an emotional level. I wouldn't want to sit here and try to explain why that dance is impactful, but it just, definitely the rest of it flowed out, just trying to create the emotion that resulted in me watching you dance, Donald. So.
And dance is its own language, right? So to translate that cinematically is a tough thing to do. It's often two-dimensional and flat, and this film wasn't. I want to ask you. One, I got to talk about these prosthetics. I thought my AFOs were decked out, but look at that.
Yeah.
Ready for battle.
Or dancing.
Or dancing. What's it like to have your life there on screen, wide open, for the world to see?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Dylan for capturing my dogs, because they're gone now, but that was the last year that I had them, and it was...
What are their names again?
Marshmallow and Loki.
Marshmallow and Loki.
Marshmallow and Loki, yeah, basically.
Which is the prototypical Shih Tzu, right? No.
Typical.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
calming down. I think, when Dylan approached me, it was just more like a day in the life, kind of like a working disabled artist, so it's pretty natural. And I don't know how he does all the editing, because we're just talking, and that's the magic of filmmakers, I think. And they can splice up random dialogue into something like coherent. So it was really fun. But it's like, dance I also feel is a universal language. So you don't need to explain yourself exactly what Sam was talking about. Like sometimes you don't need much explanation. And even with the other films about intimacy and whatnot, it's just so natural and so basic that people understand even without the context of disability. And
You did it.
it's straight.
Yeah.
It's straight. Yeah, straight to the heart. And I think so that's what it is. So it's great to show dancing could be so relatable on so many different levels.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things of this of this film, how it's rendered, is that you see, people think, for example, they're conditioned to believe you're either a wheelchair user or you're not, right? And we see you, right, using the chair, crawling around, biking around, right? Now, different ways that you mobile, and I like that that's just sort of woven into the fabric of sort of your life and your narrative and your story. And so it sort of, I don't know, communicates the point. People, I think, mistakenly believe that inspiration is this warm, fuzzy feeling in your stomach. But if you look at the root of the word, it actually says something shifts, something changes, right? Something is not what it was before. And so, to my mind, inspiration is a verb, and it seems that this film is a wonderful representation of that.
Thank you.
And as is your life. So thank you. Thank you. And you could actually say that about all of these films. So I want to thank everybody for sharing your work and for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you all. These films are so amazing. Tell your friends to see these films. We have more films tomorrow, and actually 2 more films right now coming up as part of our mental health series. We have Dear Annie and Dash coming up next in this room in 5 minutes. You are all welcome to stay. They are fantastic, like all the others that you're going to see here this week. So please stay, join us, or come back for more, but help spread the word. Also, share your feedback. There are feedback forms outside that you can do online. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you, guys.